Welcome to Adventures in Surgical Weight Loss with Dr. R. I'm Dr. Richard Rasmussen. I'm a bariatric surgeon and excited to bring you another story from a surgical weight loss patient. My goal is to give patients a place where they can share their amazing stories. I get to hear these stories all the time. I hope through this process to get rid of some of the bad information that exists about surgical weight loss. Today we get to hear from Morgan Hyden. She is just over a year out from a gastric bypass. She's lost 125 pounds and is doing great. And she shares a little surprise with us in this episode. So enjoy getting to know Morgan. Okay, today I have the opportunity to sit down with Morgan Hyden. Morgan, welcome.
Thank you.
And why don't you go ahead and tell us your story?
All right. So, ever since I was little, I have struggled with my weight. When I was 12 years old, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, and it made it extremely hard for me to lose weight and to keep it off. I tried a lot of diets out there, a lot of different medications, and I've never had any luck. A couple years ago, I had my very best friend have gastric sleeve with Dr. Rasmussen, and she was like, I think you should really look into it. And so me and my mom looked into it more and kind of talked with the office about getting it set up and stuff. So that was probably the best thing I've ever done. I got it done in April of 2023. I'm currently down 125 pounds, which is amazing because I've never been able to lose more than 10, 15 pounds here and there. So it's been awesome.
That's fantastic. As you approach this process, what were some of the barriers or some of the difficulties for you?
Probably deciding which surgery to get, just because I've had a lot of different family members get it as well, and they've kind of all had different surgeries. So I was just more worried about which one to get, I would say, and which one would benefit me the best.
And how did you come up with that ultimate decision?
I think talking with you in my initial consult, you kind of went over the different surgeries, and I had horrible acid reflux, so you kind of mentioned that the bypass would be a lot better for that. So,
Yeah. And I'll just point out that as I counsel patients and we're talking about deciding between a sleeve and a bypass, from a weight loss standpoint, it's fairly similar. If you look at national studies, it's a difference of only about 10%. Actually, our data is only about 3 to 5% different between the two procedures from a weight loss standpoint. So there are two areas where I focus on for doing a bypass instead of a sleeve, and one of those is really severe reflux. A sleeve largely won't treat reflux. It can get better with weight loss, but a bypass is very effective at treating reflux. And just for informational purposes, the other reason is mild or moderate type 2 diabetes, because you get better long-term resolution of the type 2 diabetes with a bypass than with a sleeve. So that's probably the discussion we had a year or so ago.
yeah.
Awesome.
And that's another thing. I had horrible acid reflux for years, and ever since I've had surgery, I haven't had 1 ounce of it, and it has been amazing.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing because, and maybe share a little bit with us of kind of what your life was like with the reflux and how that's changed.
So I was taking the max dose of omeprazole every day, which was, I think, 80 milligrams. And I like constantly eating Tums all the time just because it was so bad. Like the medicine wasn't even helping it. I was constantly switching between omeprazole, pantoprazole, just a bunch of different medications, and we could never find anything that would work. So having this weight loss surgery that was the cure.
I love it. That's great. Awesome. All right. So we talked a little bit about kind of how you made the decision for which procedure. In that process of getting ready for surgery, what was the hardest part for you?
The hardest part was definitely the pre-op diet. Having to do 2 weeks of the liquid diet, it was hard. It was a struggle. The protein shakes didn't sit well with me, so I was constantly sick. But looking back now, it was so worth it. Like, I would do it a million times over just to have these results again.
Awesome. I love it. So you had a friend encourage you to do it, made the decision. We talked about the procedure. We got you through the process. Talk to me about maybe day of surgery and maybe the first immediate part right after surgery. How did that go for you? What was it easy? Was it hard?
So, day of surgery was really hard. I was so nervous. I was so sick because I hadn't eaten. I had 3 or 4 nurses in at a time trying to get me to calm down. They finally gave me a little cup with some peppermint oil, like essential oils to smell to calm my nerves, which was amazing. I had my mom and my dad there, and my husband as well. And just having that support there with me helped a lot, as hard as it was and scary, because I knew from that moment on my life was going to change forever. So it was kind of it was a very emotional day knowing that, it's going to be a big change. And then immediately after surgery, it was hard because I was in a lot of pain, just like nauseous and pain. I know I had a nerve block, but it didn't really help. But yeah, just super nauseous after I remember being, so.
Okay. And then we got you through that, kind of transitioned you through the different diets. What was the experience like of losing the weight? I mean, was that a pretty straightforward thing, or were there ups and downs?
It was pretty straightforward. A couple weeks into it, I kind of hit a stall, but I think it was just because my body was like trying to heal and get used to the new diet that I was on. But it came off pretty steadily, which was awesome.
Great, great. Throughout that process, we often talk about non-scale victories. What were some of the non-scale victories you've seen?
Um, the one most recently, I found out I was pregnant about 6 weeks ago. So that's been the biggest non-scale victory is being able to get pregnant for sure.
Congratulations, that's
Thanks.
awesome.
And
That's
then a couple
awesome.
other ones. I work for the school district, and being able to play with my students at recess. We like to play soccer back and forth, so I'm out there on the soccer field with my students, which I've never been able to do, run back and forth like that. Having the energy to keep up with my nieces and nephews has been awesome. Not being the lazy ant on the couch, being able to get on the floor and play with them has been huge because I absolutely love them. And then another one is buying clothes in the regular section at stores and not the plus size section has been awesome. Have a
That's
lot
great.
more variety to choose from.
Oh, very cool, very cool. How many nieces and nephews do you have?
I have 2 nieces and 1 nephew.
And what are their ages?
Um, my nephew is 4, and then my 2 nieces are 2 and 3.
Yeah, fun ages.
So yeah.
So, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about the pregnancy. Were you having difficulties before?
Yes. I actually had a miscarriage earlier this year, and I think a lot of it had to do with my thyroid, but meeting with my doctor, we got it all sorted out and finally on track again. So I had my first ultrasound yesterday, and baby's strong heartbeat and doing good. So
Oh, that's so awesome.
yeah.
This comes up quite a bit with young women, and obesity causes infertility. And so it can be difficult. And you'll remember probably we gave you the instructions that in that early weight loss phase, we don't want you getting pregnant
Yep.
and so because fertility can change, you need to use contraception during that time period. But not only is there the benefit of as you lose the weight, the fertility improves, but then also the data shows that both you and baby are going to be healthier when your starting weight has been lower as you go through this pregnancy.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Um, if you had a friend help you get into this process, if how would you counsel friends?
I would definitely get into like the nitty gritty of it. Like it's hard. Like it's not a walk in the park. There's so many emotions going into this. I struggled with like the food being a mind game at the very beginning. So like, and I've talked to actually my husband's aunt is wanting to get it, and I've kind of talked to her like warning her up front that it's not easy, and it's gonna be hard, but it is so worth it. And I always tell everybody that I talk to that this is the best thing I've ever done for myself. But yeah, it is hard, and just know that I will be your biggest support here because I've gone through it. You can ask me all the questions, and I will be more than happy to answer truthfully.
Tell me a little bit more about the mind game.
Yeah, so I feel like before I had this surgery, I honestly was addicted to food. I was just like always wanting to eat, like worrying about my next meal. And so I feel like realizing that I was addicted to food, now I can make those, better decisions because I have the knowledge and, the time instead of, oh, I'm starving, let me eat, 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 eat. But now I can make those better choices. And I honestly, at the beginning, I was depressed not being able to eat those foods again. And I would sit in my bed and scroll on TikTok and watch mukbangs, like just watch people eat the food that I couldn't eat. And looking back at, like, I was depressed about it, obviously, but now that the weight has come off and I'm making those better choices, it is so much easier. And I'm like, that looks gross to me. Like, I don't want that anymore. So,
Yeah, that's an interesting comment about that. And sugar, which is a component of a lot of those things that we see and want to eat, does excite the brain. I mean, it causes secretion of dopamine, which is creates pleasure for us. Um, but what's interesting is a lot of times when people have been off sugar for a while and then they introduce it back in, they don't feel good. It just makes them
yeah,
not feel good.
for
But
sure.
the analogy I use, it's a lot like smoking. You start smoking and you cough and it's very, your body doesn't like it. But then if you keep doing it, your body will get used to it and kind of push that aside. So um, I heard that in your story where, yeah, I wanted to do it, but now I don't even want to do it because I've gotten
Mhm.
through that and gotten past that.
Yeah.
Would you advise people to watch cooking shows or sit on TikTok and watch watch videos of eating if this is one of their struggles?
I probably wouldn't just because it like reminds you of like what you can't eat at that time, being on like the soft food diet or, wanting to lose the weight. I wouldn't just because it puts you back in that depressive state of, oh, I can't eat that anymore. I can't eat that much anymore. So, I mean, it was probably bad on my part to do that, but I just
But
needed
but you
help.
learned,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and,
Yep,
and
it
you
helped.
can counsel other people on that.
Yeah.
That's great. And I like you kind of made this point of you're focusing on what I can't do versus what I can, and I've heard that come through what you're saying. I'm choosing these different foods because I like them and I like how it makes me feel. And I think that's a very important mindset to have because that helps you get through these difficult things better.
Yep. Yep.
Great. Was there ever any point in this process where you said, "Oh my goodness, why did I do this?"
At the very beginning, I remember I stayed with my mom because she was able to take more time off of work than my husband was to help me out with recovery. And I just remember, waking up in the middle of the night in so much pain. Just like my one incision, I don't know which one it was, but one was just super painful and I was so nauseous all the time. So like I actually got super depressed and was like, why did I do this? I was bound and determined to get this reversed because of how bad it was. I was depressed probably for a good 3 or 4 weeks about it. So,
Yeah.
but looking
What?
back, it's worth it. Totally worth it.
Okay. Good. And you now have that perspective. Of course, that's
Yeah.
hard when you're in the middle of it.
Yes.
So in talking to someone who is going through it or going to go through it, are there any tips you learned that helped you kind of get through the depressed part of it? Anything that would help them out?
I honestly think that you starting your podcast is going to help a lot of people. Like knowing that there is the light at the end of the tunnel. Like it gets better eventually, and when it does get better, it is 10 times worse than your life has ever been. So I think just remembering that it does get better will help a lot.
Good. So having that perspective that there's a light at the end of the tunnel
Yeah.
will help people
Yeah.
go through that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good point. That's a good point. Other parts of this journey that have been memorable for you?
I was reading over the questions, and one was, what was your breaking point? My breaking point was I went to Disneyland for my 25th birthday with my dad and my stepmom and stepsister. And I just remember it was so hard walking around the parks being, 300 plus pounds for 3 days straight on my feet constantly and in the heat too. So it was really hard on my body. And we also went to Universal Studios while we were there, and they have a more stricter weight limit on their rides, I guess. And I was pulled out of the line in front of a lot of other people by an employee and told I was too big to ride that ride. And I just remember feeling so embarrassed. And so I think that was like the biggest breaking point for me. Yeah, it was hard. I cried and cried and cried for
Oh
like
yeah,
3 hours about it.
yeah, absolutely.
So
That's very humiliating done right there in public in front of
yeah,
everybody.
yep.
Yeah, wow, sorry.
So
Wow.
yeah.
What else? What else would you like to share with us?
I don't I don't know. I mean, just having a support system, like my support system has been amazing. I've had, multiple people in my family have the surgery, so they know what I'm to expect and how to help me. My mom and my dad have been amazing. My husband, just everybody. Like the support I have received since I've had surgery is far more than I could ever expect. So I just want to give a little shout out to them and thank them for everything they've done.
Yeah,
And your
that's
office
awesome.
too. Your office has been amazing. I love going to my doctor's appointments because I love to get to talk to you guys and share my successes with you. And you guys are always so excited and share those successes with me. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Well, in reference to this podcast, that's why I started it. I mean, we get to hear that. We get to hear that from you and fellow patients, and just looking for a way to share that with others.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit now about, okay, here you are. You told me you're about a year into this. You've lost 125 pounds. What are some of the healthy habits that you now have in your life that are going to help you be successful long term?
I would say the biggest one is I've definitely learned portion control, obviously, because I can't eat that much physically because of my stomach. But, just before surgery, I would just make a big plate and say, okay, this is what I have to eat. I'm going to eat it all. But now I make my plate, what I think I can eat, and then I don't feel like I have to eat it all. So that's been a huge one. So yeah.
That's a great point. And yeah, when I was a kid, which is a lot of years before you were a kid, it was like, oh, you have to eat everything on your plate, and that message still comes through. And it's people are starving throughout the world. You have to eat all your food, and that's definitely the wrong message. We need to
Right.
listen to
Yeah.
our bodies, and if you're full, then you can be done.
Yeah. And definitely making those healthier choices as well has been huge.
That's great. How about exercise? How does exercise play into your life?
Um, I go to Aqua Zumba with my in-laws every once in a while at the rec center, and that is so much fun. But other than that, usually just like walks around the neighborhood, I've been super busy with work, and I'm currently going to school to be a special ed teacher. So that's kind of been tricky, but I mean, as much as I can, I take my dog for walks, and so.
So would you say you live a more active lifestyle now than you did prior to surgery?
Oh, definitely. I know it's not perfect now, but it is definitely a lot better than it was before surgery. And I truly think because it's easier for me to move around and get that exercise in.
Yeah. That's one thing I try to emphasize is actually there's a term for it. It's called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is basically just means your kind of your daily activities which help increase your skeletal muscle because you have that resistance, and it creates some caloric burning. It helps with your basal metabolic rate, just being more active, and so little things like parking farther away, so you walk in longer, using stairs when you can, being more active, playing with the nieces and nephews like you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you had to give your kind of one biggest tip, what would that be?
If you're looking to do this surgery, just do it. Don't wait any longer. Just get it done. That's the one thing I wish I would have done, was done it a lot sooner, to have a healthier lifestyle for longer.
Awesome. Well, Morgan, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Congrats on 125 pounds lost. Congrats on the pregnancy.
Thanks.
That's exciting. Those are exciting times. So we look forward to helping you through all of that, and that's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks again to Morgan for sharing her story with us. Congratulations on having lost 125 pounds, and congratulations on the pregnancy. How exciting to have a new baby coming. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. It will help us reach more people with these amazing stories. I also have a YouTube channel where you can see this video, as well as several other videos about surgical weight loss, general surgery, and robotic surgery. Join us next time for another amazing story.